Hello. So today we're on the second podcast ever for the Afterburn podcast, episode two, and we got a great episode here today.
All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to episode two. Once again, I'm Insomnix. We have Blink and Gib here with us, and hope to give you guys some interesting content for Afterburn.
Yeah. So the first topic we're going to talk about today is the viewership for the regionals that we've been seeing across NA and Europe for the first split here.
Like we talked about this a little earlier in the previous episode, but I just genuinely think that it's very catered to the EU audience. So I guess Gib, you probably have the numbers up already. Can you give us the numbers for the regionals for both NA and EU?
Yeah, I'll give the rough like numbers on what we've seen. I think the EU one's still going on, so it's not like exact numbers, and this is just like the generalized one I saw from the Twitter and esports charts. But NA, whenever I looked at it personally on Twitch, it always got had around like 50, 60K live, and then when it came into the esports charts, I think it had like maybe like a 90K peak, and it averaged like 65K for like the whole weekend for the last NA regional, and kind of like the last two or so. And then Europe was around 130K, I think, peak, and then 100 and it averaged like 80K, so it averaged quite substantially higher than NA. Could be for like many factor reasons. Like I know EU has the Carmine Core org, which always
Yeah,
brings
I
in
was
a lot
gonna
of
say.
fans from the French audience stuff, which is
It's
great
like
for the
half
RL
ours,
scene.
Casey.
Obviously, it's great to have the Carmine Core and all the fans in, but I think it's not really excuse because NA has like Optic, which is supposed to be like the green wall, and has all its passionate fans that don't seem to show up at all, and FaZe Clan with like its big org and all the fans that are supposed to come with it that also don't seem to show up in Rocket League. So it's kind of weird whether it's like the times or not, but it's definitely something to look at. I think overall though, you can also see that the views at least for NA is down from last year and 2 years prior for the regionals, which I think is a concerning kind of aspect to look at though as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's burnout, to be honest. I mean, not much is changing between the regionals. And then with the introduction of majors, it's like, why do people care that much about regionals when you can just see the highlights? And then for the major, that's when you actually want to watch because you have international competition and you have the crowd, you have like probably higher production as well. More moments that matter, right? I don't know. That's what I think is the main reason why regionals are going down is because they're not changing much. Um, And there's not much like you get out of watching the regionals. You don't really get like a lot of really cool analysis. I mean, you have like the pre-show, but it's usually like this like 75% of it's the same for the pre-show
Yeah,
anyways. I don't really have any crazy content in between games. You just have the games themselves. So unless you have like hardcore fans like KC fans, it's not gonna get a lot of viewership, I think, for regionals with the way they're doing them right now.
Do you think viewers are getting burned out from watching too much Rocket League just because there's the amount of time that you can spend watching all of these regionals and events?
I mean, it could be burnout. It could be also that like maybe Rocket League just needs to up the entertainment quality for segments between games and stuff. If you look at like other esports and Valorant and stuff, I think they have some better, maybe more engaging technical analysis to keep people around. So Rocket League could maybe look to like up the in between segments between games and look at maybe different angles to take on it. Might be a little hard though because they don't have a studio or anything. And every time I see like cool segments, it's always in a studio most of the time, and they have like the chalkboard or whiteboard ready to go for analysis or interesting segments, etc. It could be that, could be burnout. There's a lot of factors. At least the majors, as Blink said, are kind of still increasing viewership, which is good, but definitely something that Silence could maybe look to try to bring back as some of the regional viewership because it's definitely down in NA and Europe overall.
I think for me, it's like it's harder to get invested because most of the regional, for example, the Swiss stage, that happens on Friday. And that ends before most people are finished school or working from their full-time jobs. So it's like I've already missed half the regional, then it, I don't feel the need to watch the rest of the regional. It's like there's no investment for me. Why would I even watch it?
Yeah, going back, I mean, last podcast we talked about the timings for when they show these regionals, right? I think they would get a lot more interaction or at least viewership from fans if they did it after like work hours. Because then it'd be treated more like, hey, I just got off work, I have like a couple hours to like watch this thing and like cool down and relax and
Watch it during
I
my
think
dinner as a
yeah,
common thing to do.
yeah. And it is in terms of like I know traditional sports, a lot of viewership comes from the fans of those specific teams, right? But I think in like Rocket League, I don't know about other esports themselves, but a lot of that viewership is just for the game itself, not much for, or at least the region itself, and not much for like a specific team.
The team. Yeah.
So it's
The
interesting to
casters
think about
mention that all the time, though. They're like, we are big fans of Rocket League. We just want to see good Rocket League. That's the
Well, to
only
be
game
honest, that's
where
me
we.
too.
That's the. Yeah, I mean it's true, but meanwhile in literally every other sport, people are only watching their team.
I guess you know why that is though. Like if we're being honest, it's probably because in those sports, you just like are fans of whatever city you're from, right? Like
Yeah,
Toronto
it's
or
mainly geographically located for the most part.
yeah.
But that's how you don't get burnout for real life sports. It's like, no one. Okay, very few people watch every single NBA match. Okay, they're gonna most.
It's I think a lot of people
Nah,
watch every single NBA match. There
every
are
single
passionate
one.
fan
No,
bases.
That's such a time
For
sink.
every
No,
team?
people do. People do for fantasy and stuff with NBA fantasy, hockey fantasy. People watch every match.
There's
They
no way. That's
exist.
such a huge time commitment, though.
I'd
Like,
believe it.
sure,
Some
Though.
you
people
just watch
enjoy.
the teams that you care about. Like, you're from Toronto, you're gonna watch the Toronto Raptors. Like, you're not gonna watch Florida. Like,
I mean,
Kansas
it
City. Who
exists
cares
in
about
Rocket
that?
League. I know there's a lot of people that will watch Retals for Retals, or they'll watch
Hmm.
specific players because it's their favorite streamer, or they make the favorite content.
Or KC NRG. Or
Or
like the two
KC's
biggest.
the best example of like people that watch for a team specifically. I just think there's not enough of a like big enough fan impact to ever see it in the viewership numbers of like increase just because of a specific player or something playing. We don't have that big of a personality. It's just I guess the
Like, I'll
sadness
watch
of
FaZe
coming with
just to
Rocket League
see
being
some
such a
whip
niche game.
resets. Right?
You
I'll
watch
watch
FaZe
that.
for what reason?
I'll watch FaZe so I can see some cool flip resets and double resets, okay? I don't want first killer. Why would I? Like, it's hard to cheer for first killer who's extremely toxic. Like, how do I cheer for someone who's a bad person, right?
Because he's the best
Whereas,
in the game.
like,
One of the
he's
best.
fun to watch, but I don't have any sort of connection. Like, meanwhile, for G2, I would actually be like, wow, I want these guys to win. They're like decent people.
I don't want G2 to win anymore because they they ruined two grand finals for NA, and I can't
They
get
have
over
no
that.
ice.
They have no ice. But honestly, like yeah, if they make grand finals again, of course I would cheer for them, but I wouldn't expect them to win in Worlds because no ice. But major is a different story. They can win majors. But yeah, I don't know. It's is it really? Do you think it's just that RL doesn't have as good personalities as other esports that it's just not as mainstream that, or is it something like we have just have like a lot younger viewership or viewer or like player base that, you know, I guess when you're younger, not a lot of people can or want to really care about you that much because you're a little bit immature or you aren't as respectable because of the age thing. I don't know. Um, it's a weird topic for in terms of like how do you think about the viewership and why isn't it like higher
For the
for certain
regionals, when
regions?
the like
Yeah.
international majors and worlds have kept like similar to ones in the past. It's just kind of like on a regional basis. It could be like any of the things.
Yeah. The concerning part is the viewership declining. Whereas if it stayed consistent and it was just stagnating,
Yeah, I think that'd
that's
be
like
fine. Yeah,
not as bad. It's like, okay, you have the same number of fans overall.
but yeah,
I think
just
it's gonna
Regional
keep
to regional.
declining though.
put into
But
a little more
it's been
context though.
declining for years.
For people who haven't been watching Rocket League forever, RLCSX is when they first went to the open format, and during that time they had like 100K plus for like every regional that year. Like it went crazy on viewership. That was their best year for viewership ever. Like every regional was peaking at like 150K. I think some peaked at like 200 plus K for just the NA regionals and European regionals. It was a great year. And then the second year it was lower, and now this year it's even lower. So like every year with this open format, the regional viewership for NA and Europe has just kept going like slightly down each year. Although Europe's kind of the same as last year actually. With this regional, it was a little better. I don't know if that was just because of KC or not, but it was a little better. So
Yeah, France kind of carries Rocket League a little bit.
yeah, France is
like,
a little. They
I
carry
think
hard.
I think Rocket League might be the most associated game with France in terms of like proportions of their fan base to other regions, right?
Definitely from a player perspective, they're the biggest in terms of like French pros. It's the biggest
Yeah.
game.
Well, yeah, they had like 5 teams, and the regional from the fall cup that were just pure France, and then like another like you can count like a sixth team if you're counting like
Yeah,
French speaking.
it's a little hard to say Rocket League's the biggest in France because I'm pretty sure there's a League of Legends regional league that's dedicated to the entirety of France. It's called like the LFL or something. I think it's just all France. Like every single
Oh,
team
wow.
is from France, and they just run like. But that's like a
France
bigger
just has a lot
ecosystem,
of
so it's not really
esports
fair to
fans.
compare. But yeah, that's
Like
just
it's
they
not just
they have like
Rocket
a
League, right?
they have a France regional league, they have a German regional league, they have like a Spanish regional league. They're crazy. It's kind of nuts in that esport, but
League, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's a tier 1 year sport. It's hard to compare.
But it's just the organization, right? Like who do we have that's big in France? Vitality, KC.
Oh, it's true.
Like,
Rocket League has like
ADS,
a
These
yeah.
these are orgs
substantially
with
high,
huge French
huge French
followings.
orgs that, and it's because I think it's just
Like
because there's
Solar
a
and
huge,
Go too.
there's all these French players that are so good and it's just so big in France compared to all the other like European countries. Other than I guess Great Britain's also sneakily been climbing and good as well.
Spain a little
It's
bit too,
interesting,
yeah.
right? So you have a KC fan who doesn't watch Rocket League, and because they're KC fan, they're now a KC Rocket League fan.
Yeah,
But that
it's
doesn't apply to any of the NA orgs. Like,
It should apply to the NA.
why doesn't it?
I mean, I'm sure there are some people who have like watched FaZe and they haven't watched Rocket League and they see FaZe as Rocket League do it. It just hasn't happened to the factor where we see it in viewership, where it actually has like an effect on the amount of viewers we're seeing. Like there's definitely a few, maybe a couple hundred, maybe a couple thousand, but it's not enough to
It's
see
not
KC
significant.
where it's like 30K, 20K, or like 40K people watching just because of the org.
Is it because Casey is owned by like this huge content creator or was created by this huge
Yeah,
content
yeah.
creator that's like huge in France? Because I've honestly never heard about Casey until they joined Rocket League last year.
Everyone loves that content creator, and it just has a super passionate like fan base around him and any team he supports. It's just a really cool kind of like culture they've grown at KC.
It's almost like a
It's
cult
super cool to
when you
see.
look at it.
It's a nice
Kind of
cult
is,
though.
no?
It's a nice cult. It's
No,
a
it's
nice
not a bad
cult.
one,
Like
but-
it's cool what they've done. It's cool what they've
Well,
done.
it's a hardcore group, if you will.
Yeah, it's not a bad cult until you talk trash to them.
Until they've done
And
something bad. Until they've done something ethically bad. It's not a cult.
Like if you're a cast and you roast a KC player, like you're getting hate comments in your DMs.
That's just true for any team, though. To be honest, that exists for any team or any nation. There's going to be people
Well, it's
hating.
exacerbated
but-
for fans of really hardcore followings, you know.
No, it's funny because you if you talk trash about KC, their fans will come at you, be super mad at you, like be
Yeah.
toxic. If you talk trash about NRG, their fans will like pile on.
Yeah, you're right. Justin should retire. Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, moving on to our next topic we're going to talk about. It's the predictions we have for the NA teams that we think are going to make the major.
Yeah, we could even probably talk about other regions too, but
Yeah, we'll talk about
just
other regions in the
finished,
future, but for this one, we're just going to stick to NA and the predictions we have for them. Maybe we'll do
Sounds good.
Europe ones next week after the second regionals fully completed and done. But yeah, going for NA, who wants to go first? Who's got the predictions ready on the 5 teams they think are going to make it?
I think I know my 5. So we have Genji.
One's
already
easy.
confirmed.
One's easy.
Yeah. Okay, well,
Genji's already made it.
yeah, it's not even a question.
Yeah.
The other 4, well, I mean, V1 and FaZe are pretty much already locked in. They just need to win like 1 or 2 series, which I doubt they won't be able to do.
Yeah.
So those are pretty much locked in. SSG is pretty much locked in. They just have to make top 8, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, SSG's. It'd have to be like colossal failure for them to not make it.
Yeah, and I think they're probably gonna go like 3-1 in the Swiss anyways. So
Oh, that's 4 teams now.
yeah, so last team is really between what Furia, G2, and
This is the most
NRG
interesting
and
one. It's
Optic.
between a lot of teams. You
Yeah,
could
so
even
let's
throw
see.
Kapuxi and Shopify in there. If they popped off and made a final, they'd probably like make
They,
it.
Yeah, so
they
right now-
have to make finals though, right? So
Something like that, yeah. Finals or
Yeah.
semis or
yeah,
Yeah, we
No,
have
Optic-
G2 15, NRG 15, Furia 14, Optic 14, Complexity Shopify 12.
Yeah.
Everyone
Yeah.
else is not gonna make it.
yeah. I mean Dignitas and they'd have to win the whole thing.
No,
for
they
sure.
have no
That'd be,
chance. I don't think
almost
they're
impossible.
Yeah, based
Love
off the
Dignitas,
last
but I don't.
rank,
This ain't their one. This ain't their one.
No, they
We had the
Zenil's-
OG Dignitas, maybe.
Yeah,
You know, if they had Zanil and I don't know, maybe if they had Zanil, maybe they have
Maybe.
a chance. And they would have had better like
Yeah.
performances, but
Who
that's
do you
not
have
their
in the-
fault.
Who do you
It's
have in the
Zanil's
5th
fault.
spot? Who do you
Fifth
got?
spot, I got. You know what? I'm gonna say G2, but watch, it's gonna be Furia like next week.
It's
They're
gonna
gonna
be
like pop
Furia.
off or something.
Watch
I
G2
think
choke.
I
Like,
have G2, but I wouldn't be. I would be like Furia's close, like 6. Like I think there's a decent chance that Furia could pop off
Yeah.
and like we could see something crazy and G2 just fumble the bag. But I think G2 should make it. I think they're the better team. I think Furia. I don't know. Furia's great. They looked good like last regional, especially compared to the first one, but they're in the beast mode. So, but I think if it was V1 versus G2, I think G2 still would have beat like a peaking beast mode.
Yeah.
So I'd have G2 right now, making it.
G2's only this low because of their last regional performance where they were up 2-0 in Swiss, 6-0 in games, lost
Mhm.
2 game 5s, and then
Noise.
lost their 5th series, and then did not come top 8.
Yeah, yeah,
Could you say it's copium? They got a unlucky matchup. Like they,
a little bit. Yeah, you could. I mean, Optic
they
had like
drew
a
Genji.
Mickey bracket, and NRG had a Mickey bracket.
Yeah.
What was Furious bracket like? Did they?
I think they had like a mediocre one, an average one.
It's average, not easy, but not hard.
Yeah, so they went up against NRG, SSG, and G2. Yeah, no, those are like all 3 teams made top 8, so they had a pretty tough bracket too.
Yeah. I think my predictions are they're going to be boring because think I just agree with you in the top 5. It's going to be
Same, yeah.
Gen G, FaZe,
Yeah.
V1, SSG, and then G2 as well. I just think NRG. I think it was a bit of a fluky top 4. I don't think they have it
No,
back
that was
or
a fluke. I
anything
don't
yet.
think they'll come top 4.
Bit
for
of a
next regional.
honeymoon period just for getting rid of Sizz, and it wasn't even that high of a honeymoon period. I think they'll come back down to their normal state in this next regional. And then I think it's between Furia, Optic, and G2. I think Optic just kind of lacks a bit of the X factor to get like a semifinal or a final finish required. And then I think G2 is just like their worst result was missing top 8. Like I don't think they can do much worse than that. The next one they're bound to bounce back.
4.
They'll probably make top 4 or win the whole thing. Like they just have the highest ceiling I think of all the teams there, and they just kind of ran into a bad one bad regional.
Yeah, it happens. What about you, Insom?
I think I would say the same. I mean, Gen G's already locked in. FaZe and version 1 are pretty much locked in. Like SSG and G2 have to be colossally like failing to not make the major, in my opinion.
Yeah, I could see SSG not making it if we see a G2 Furia final. That's a possibility. I could see SSG not making it, but Furia and G2 both surpassing them.
Yeah, there's like
which would be pretty interesting.
SSG's like huge like outside shot that they would make it. It'd be hard. It could happen.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. But I honestly don't really think Optic has a chance unless like Magic Bear and AJ Peak. Magic Bear, he's had his moments, but I think he's still got a lot to learn, and that team still needs a lot of work on their cohesion. But I do think when they are working as a team and well together, they do look like pretty good.
I think they could maybe make the winter major. I just don't think they're gonna figure it out in this like third split and do good enough to make the fall one.
Yeah.
I think Furia might make it. NRG, Optic, Complexity, Shopify, I think are just no. They're like I'm gonna say it right now.
I would love to see
Shopify
make it.
I'd love to see Shopify make it. I just
Yeah.
sadly don't think they would. I think that'd be a great story. It'd be so much fun to see them make it.
It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, it'd be sick. I mean, I want to see TPs pop off LAN, but it's probably not gonna happen this split. Maybe not
next
this season.
I'm looking to the future right now, and it says right here that they're not gonna make it. So
it says how you have the script. You should bring it out. Yeah. Bring up the whole paper. He does work at Pigstop. They do give him the predictions early and
that's true.
Who's gonna win early.
Yeah, but looking at the time ones, there's a couple time ones where Furia will squeak into the top 5, but it's gonna be a close battle, I think, between G2 and Furia for the 5th spot at the major.
It'd be really crazy if we see G2 Furia in like a top 4 against each in the quarterfinals.
Because I'm looking into the future right now. There are timelines where Furia
or
makes
tiebreakers. Tiebreakers could happen too. That'd be dope.
Oh yeah, we could have Yeah, well, I don't even know what needs to happen for that though. I'm sure there's
No,
already
there's too
supposed to
many
be.
scenarios. Can't talk about that, but it'd be cool to see like a tiebreaker for the last land spot. We might get another mini bracket if it's like a 4 or 5 way tie. That'd be cool to see.
Yeah, that'd be
That's
fun. I mean,
interesting.
last year we had that complexity
Yeah.
SSG tiebreaker. It'd be funny if we saw a optic Fury tiebreaker, but that's probably not gonna happen because I don't think G2 fumbles the bag that hard to not make it into a tiebreaker.
Should be
Yeah, and
interesting.
aside from teams making the major, our next thing is we want to talk about is it's been baited for a while. It's always been questioned. It's always on
Yep.
Twitter topics. Whether it's content creators baiting for it, wanting it. We're gonna discuss the UE5 and it's kind of like RL content in general, and kind of like the negative annotations of it and how hard it is to actually make content within this scene.
Yeah, well, UE5 I think is one of the main things that's everybody wants because right now it's been so long since Rocket League had a really meaningful update in my opinion. And I think one of the warning signs to me that Rocket League has been declining in player base without even looking at the numbers on whatever you can find them is the fact that they switched from the playlist population to like instead of being actual like
The meme.
numbers of to like good, bad, or like
No,
they
there's
don't
no
even
bad.
have
There's no bad.
There's
There's
no
no
bad.
bad.
The lowest is
Good,
good.
great, amazing.
yeah,
The meme.
great, amazing.
One of the best
like,
memes ever.
okay.
And I
So
never see it at great too. It's always at good. So that
I've
doesn't
seen
even
good a
help
few
them.
times. I've never seen amazing. I don't think I've ever seen amazing.
But here's the thing: it also differs depending on the playlist. Like
Yeah, it's
the
supposed to.
actual
It's
number
supposed to.
changes.
That was the point.
So
It's
like,
supposed to tell you differing on the playlist.
Yeah. Just like, there's so much potential with like more things that they could do in Rocket League. And they have the fans who are already like want to do something similar to like
Yeah.
Fortnite's creative mode where like they make their own maps, they make their own like hoops maps. And I feel like that wouldn't be that hard to implement. Well, obviously you need the right amount of devs to do that, but if other games can do it, if you have Epic Games that already has done something similar, hopefully they can help you out with figuring out how to add that to your own game. And with UE5, you could also add a lot more features that, or actually, it would make the game like a lot more fun, more engaging, even esports wise. Like I know some games have like modes where you can go in and watch certain pros play or certain players play. Like you can search for certain players and get into their
Yeah.
matches and just watch them. So that'd be really cool. And I think what I've heard is just the game engine they're on right now limits them from doing a lot of cool and meaningful updates themselves. So that's why everybody like wants UE5 is just because like the game's content is kind of limited at the moment, and I feel like even the devs themselves are probably being held back by UE3 or whatever engine they're on right now.
I think the biggest reason why people want UE5, specifically the content creators are strongly pushed from it and it makes sense, is that they want the creative mode. I think that's the biggest takeaway all the creators want. Because although, yes, there's like Steam Workshop maps and certain, creative modes right now in Rocket League, it's not to the point where you can just load it up and play with your friends. Like, you can do it, but you have to go through VPNs. They're like, no one's going to do it. It takes
the
hours
game
to
was
set
pulled
up.
off Steam years ago, right?
Yeah, it's
Like
pulled
you
Steam
cannot
music,
get
but
the game off
you can
Steam.
still get Steam shots. It's just like it's not practical enough for anyone where like a casual person will come in and be like, "Hey, I'm going to do this cool, creative mode workshop map with my friends on the current version of Rocket League."
And it's
So,
only on PC too, right?
yeah, I
Like
think
you
so.
can
I
only
think
do it on
Epic
PC, not even
can
console.
do it, but once again, it's just like a big hurdle. Like it's just no one's going to go through the effort of doing it.
And most
At the
Rocket
end
League
of the
players
day.
are still console, right? Last I
Yeah,
checked,
most are
the
console.
numbers were like 60 to 70%
Yeah,
console
most
players.
are still
PC
console.
players are in the minority. So even if you got it all working on PC, you're only reaching a fraction of the player base.
Yeah, but yeah, people want UE5, I think, because of that content creation mode that will be good for content creators. However, I will say, I think it's a bit of cope to think that like
It's mega
just
copium.
going to UE5 would be like the saving grace. If they go to UE5 and the developers don't release any new game modes or anything on like a weekly rotation or anything, I think it was pointless. Like the player base won't increase. It'll continue to be the stagnant like levels it's reached out to, and it'll just keep having it'll always have a passionate fan base that's like decent in size, but it won't ever like go back to what we saw when the game went free to play if we just go to UE5 and do nothing with it or lose all steam at the end of the day. Like people aren't going to just come to it if they don't have weekly modes to play that are updated and fun and new things to drive. It's just the same old, same old.
Or even like a highlighted map section where you can see what are like the most played creative maps right now, what are popular.
They have
That'd
that.
be cool.
That's supposed to exist now. It just doesn't work, or it doesn't like feel like it works.
Wait, are you talking for training maps, or are you
Yeah,
talking?
yeah.
Yeah, and look, I mean that, but for like creative maps
Oh,
that
for
people
creative
make.
maps, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that'd be really cool. I think it's needed though. UE5. If we stay on
Oh,
this engine
needed for
forever,
sure. Yeah.
like it will eventually. I don't know if it'd ever die. I think it'd just be.
It'll just stay where it's at right now. It's not dying right now. Like the player base isn't
Yeah.
on a decline. It's steady with the people that play it, and it's really hard for new players to get into the game right now. So it's not it's not increasing because people just come, try it, realize the game's too hard, and then quit. Is the general kind of like outtake on how it goes for casuals.
Yeah.
I
feel
still
like-
think UE5 is copium. Like, I think I'm a skeptic here. I think it's a mega copium. Like, introducing Rocket League recreated in UE5 will not save the game, in my opinion. It just won't. And here's
Yeah,
the
it
thing:
alone
if you
won't.
recreate it and you have physics that are just different, even if they're better, like they fixed the lag hits because of the different, I don't know, they changed the
Yeah,
refresh
there's like
rate
the
of the server,
physics.
like they changed it to 240 hertz servers or something. I don't know. Like people are gonna complain, they're not gonna like it. They're gonna be like, I want to go back to the old Rocket League. I don't see a UE5 Rocket League somehow saving this game. It might be improvement, maybe, but I'm still skeptical.
I think I could save the game. I think it alone, yes, it won't. They'd
If
have
they
to
do
do
it
a
right.
very, yeah, and doing it right is complicated. We're not saying it's easy, but they'd have to do a lot of different things. One thing they'd have to do is like a big marketing campaign, at least to raise awareness of this huge update, so that people know that there's something new in Rocket League, that there's a lot more things you could do with Rocket League. Like they wouldn't be able to ship just UE5 new engine, even just like creative mode alone. They'd have to have a lot of features around it that make it easy for players to engage with the new feature of creative mode. I am skeptical because of the last like 2-3 years of updates from Psyonix haven't been great.
There's been patch
Uh,
notes with no patch notes.
yeah, a lot of
If
design
people look,
choices
you can find them.
They've there's been multiple updates where there's introduced more bugs than they fixed for some reason, which is I don't know how they. I think one of the big reasons for that is because of UE3, but I would hope that Epic Games would invest in Psyonix and help them in something, into this huge new UE5 relaunch in a way. If they didn't, then I don't know why they bought Psyonix in the first place for Rocket League. That would be more on Epic Games. I feel like that'd be an issue, but yeah, I don't know. It's only thing that I could see that could really fix or make me hopeful again for Rocket League's future is UE5, and that might be copium, but I don't see what else could make me
Yeah,
hopeful
nothing
at
else
the
could
moment.
make it better. So even if it's copium, it is the only possible. Because what are the content creators going to do? To be honest, other than Sunless Khan and maybe some like Musty and Seabill videos, they're the ones with like the, I guess, unique RL ideas and videos. But it's kind of like that's their thing. There's not really room for any new creators or content to be done for anyone because it's just all the same. And it's not even like the game gives content. It's not like League or Overwatch where the meta changes at least, or CSGO somewhat adds new guns or shifts stuffs every once in a while. Literally nothing changes in Rocket League to make new content about. There's never like anything new
There's
or
new
anything
maps.
meta to ever talk about. New maps are like cool. They're cool cosmetically, but there's nothing to talk about them in terms of strategy or like play style wise or anything. Like everything's
Yeah,
going to stay the same, and
The background is different,
the
but
meta
everyone
never
still looks at the
changes.
ball only. Like
They
they're just
added
looking
the
at the ball. People don't even see their teammates. They just look at the ball. What do you think? Like
sorry
they're
sorry
gonna
they added the
suddenly
Merc
notice the
hitbox.
trees?
Huge meta change. Merc
did they?
hitbox.
Oh yeah, well, wasn't there a
Huge.
bunch of different hitboxes before, and then they
Yeah, like
assimilated a
4
lot of them
years
to like
ago, it
different
used to
types?
be every car
Yeah,
had its own hitbox, and I think might have had its own turning radius as well, which was super
Yeah,
cool and
everything was
interesting.
custom.
I wish they kept that, but then they changed it to standardized hitboxes, and they've added, since changing to standardized hitboxes, they've added one new hitbox. And I know this is a hot take by me, but like the idea that RL has no meta, or sorry, the idea that like RL has the most OP meta in any esport because it's only Octane, and that's the only usable car competitively, which
authentic
I
now
think
too.
personally I think is an issue that the fact you can only use the Octane hitbox competitively. But
That's true. I think.
you think maybe they try to balance it once in the 3 years that the Octane has been at the lead
Like,
for.
there's a reason why all the pro players who used to use flat cards ever since the standardization
Switched
update
Octane.
have all switched to Fennec and Octane, which is Octane hitbox. Like, there must be a big reason why 99% of players used one hitbox.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if like Ace Apatos can become
Yeah,
pro and then
he's on
and
the
then make
Sentio main.
Yeah, and
He
then
hasn't
make
went pro
Sentios.
yet, so it's
Well, hey, if he makes pro, if he wins like a major, I'm telling you, half the players
half
who
the
watch
players will be using
RL will
Sentio.
be using Sentios and like maybe even Dominus. I don't know.
Yeah.
It is a Dominus hitbox, right?
It might be Plank. It's Dominus or Plank. It's one of
Yeah,
Oh,
those
one of
two.
there's two different things. Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
even know that.
yeah.
Okay. It's probably Plank then. It's really flat.
It might be Plank. I'm
Was it a
unsure.
Who knows? But either way, in terms of the maps, like we have Lethamyr cooking up maps like every single week.
And they're
And
cool.
They're cool. I still haven't even tried any of them. I don't. I'm just too lazy to do the weird workaround to get it working on PC. Like I don't even know if it works on Epic. I know it works on Steam. If you
Yeah.
have Steam Workshop maps downloaded, do you
But
know if you
even
can even play those maps on Epic?
You can. It's there's a way to do it. I don't know how, but I've seen them link in his videos a way to do it on Epic.
I believe there's something about changing like one of the maps, like underpass.
Yeah, you can do something like that.
Redirect it to
Yeah. It's too
Lenthamyr's custom
complicated.
map, but you
It's
can
too
only do one
complicated.
at a time. But here's the thing: if you load a map, if you load that map and say Rumble or whatever, your game will crash because
Yeah.
you're loading the wrong map. So
Mm.
there's not a good way to do this without some native sort of creative mode.
I will also say the other red flag, at least in my opinion, for content is I don't know if you guys remember, but in the old Halloween they used to like at least attempt to make new game modes with like that Ghostbuster thing. Remember that Ghostbuster game mode that was released the one time on Halloween? And
Yeah.
they did a lot of things like that. This year in Halloween, their big content reveal was like I got really hyped when people saw that Lethamyr tweet. It was like, oh, we're bringing you this like spooky-tacular Halloween event. Everyone was like, oh, Pog, it's going to be a new game mode.
Yeah.
And then it gets released that it is not a new game mode, and it's just content creators we get to watch playing Lethamyr's map. Which, don't get me wrong, it's cool if you like those content creators and everything, but personally, I thought it was going to be a new game mode that I was going to be excited to play, and then it ended up being a huge letdown for me. It's not going to get me on to play the game. I'm not going to go watch that Lethamyr play his own map, but
Wait, so we
I
can't
think
play
that's a bit
that
of a
map?
red flag. It's just you can play it, but you have to do the whole like download it on Steam Workshop's regular thing,
Oh
etc.
my goodness.
Yeah.
And that's only if you're on PC again, right? Like if you're on console, like good luck to you. Like enjoy the vanilla game.
Yeah. I mean, do other esports also have this problem where they lack content? I guess you said the biggest thing in
It's
content is meta changes, right? And new like
yeah, other
characters being added if
esports
you're in league or
some are better at adding I think events and game modes than others, but almost every other esport at the very least has like meta changes that will keep
Yeah, so week has
content
balances, right?
fresh in a sense, or at least somewhat fresh, where it's like, oh, you can try this new champ that was just added to the game, or oh, we can try this new gun that was balanced out in FPS that was buffed or nerfed, or there's like new
And on
new
League,
metas
it's
to
like
discuss.
the strength or weakness of a champion can change depending on the month,
Yeah.
right?
And then
But
for
that keeps it
COD,
interesting.
the gun strength can change, right? They can make bullet damage higher. They can make bullet damage weaker.
And then there's CS:GO. The base game is just so good that even if they don't change anything, people will play
They
it
do
over
change
and over
things
and over
though.
again.
Like they added like the fake grenade thing. Like they CS:GO has like it's the closest to Rocket League. They don't do updates to that
They don't change that much for the
constantly,
meta
but they
though.
do updates. Like there are metas that have changed because of nerfs and buffs they've made. Like,
that is
recently.
interesting. CS:GO, yeah. What I think about it, I don't really know many changes myself that come to that game, but there's
They
still
changed Dusk 2 like twice in like 10 years.
Well, they add new maps too. They add new maps here
That's
and
true.
there, and they also like I don't know how close you guys followed, but they used to have like the AUG meta. I think it was like a couple years ago, and then they got rid of it because people didn't
the
like
AUG
it.
meta. I know
Yeah.
the gun, but
There's like the AUG, and then there was the other like scoped in rifle. There was like a scoped in rifle meta for a bit, and then they got rid of it because people didn't like it.
interesting. I feel like the esport kind of carries that game at this time.
Oh, for sure,
Um,
for sure.
Majors.
Yeah, people
How
who
many
don't play
majors?
the game still religiously watch the esport.
Yeah.
But yeah, and getting into our next topic, and this one I think is a very interesting one, is the the age start compared to other like bigger esports, at least for Rocket League in general, and it being 15 or 14 and 9/10, as Silence does let some 14-year-olds
Exceptions.
through
Team
with
Liquid,
exceptions.
it's sub 15.
Yeah.
You think Zen is gonna get a exception?
No, because
and
he's
like
banned.
start?
Because he was
Yeah,
banned. He won't get it because he was banned.
Fair enough. Yeah. It is. I think I talked about this a little bit recently with the respect of the age thing and the viewership, but I don't know about you guys, but I don't mind that much that we have a young viewership. But do you think maybe in terms of mainstreamness, and just like being hyped for players, it is a little bit weird, having such a young age as our pro players. Like I know for Valorant, like a lot of the players over there are like 18, 19 plus, and like a lot of their viewership uh is also around that age and like likes, or there's just like a cool, I feel like a cooler culture around Valorant than like Rocket League. I don't know if that's because of our age start.
Valorant also has like they kind of have it all from age. I think they have from like 18, 17 to like they also have 25-year-old pros, like a ton of them, like 28-year-old pros, and it's just a really wide age gap, which is good to see.
I mean, it's just weird for me. Like, this is gonna sound like a really boomer, like grandpa take. It's just hard for me to cheer for someone who's 7 years younger than me. I can cheer for someone who's at my age, G2
My
esports. But
my issue
Yeah,
is more
no,
that
it is
how,
like
true.
how am I
Yeah,
gonna cheer for someone who's like 15 and 16,
like cringe tweets,
throws
dude.
I
in
can.
ranked, they're constantly toxic and like talking like smack that's like
I was
and being rude to other people. It's like, how am I supposed to cheer for this kid?
I was say I can cheer for the occasional like 15-year-old. I think it's good for to cheer for rookies. It's exciting, but my issue with Rocket League is everyone's a rookie, and then they all retire super early. So there's not like there's any one to cheer for because they just retire before they turn like 22. Like 90% of them, 95% of them all retire or go to coaching by the time they turn 22. There's a few exceptions. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying in general, it's like it's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, there's high turnover, right? It is weird. I don't know. Like, I feel like that could be something that might be changing right now, because we're seeing a lot of not too many new players in this season. I feel like compared to the last couple. It could be something with the format change as well. That we saw going from league play where it's a lot more secured your position to now where like if you don't play well, you can easily be swapped out after a bad split. Um, so if you're not constantly being the best at the game, grinding the game and your mechanics, you might start losing your spot. But I think that might be changing a little bit as the mechanics are. I mean, yeah, everybody's. You can even look at Mina with some of their crazy players like doing super creative stuff, or Sam. With mechanic, you might be able to argue that the mechanics are still constantly evolving, and there's still a lot to improve on. But I do think at the end of the day, as we're seeing at majors, it's mostly teamwork that is the most important part right now, and being able to mesh as a team and do the correct things and learn how to like, rotate. And those aren't things that 15-year-olds or new players have a certain advantage compared to like
They have a
already seasoned
disadvantage
pros.
because they have
Yeah,
less
they'd have like
experience.
exactly. And you see that more in NA too. I feel like is you see a lot of the older players, more veteran and seasoned players at the top compared to just like random new players coming out of nowhere. And I think that a big reason of that is because NA has a little bit more focus on teamwork and communication than like Europe. But I don't know for sure. I don't want to like say for sure that's the main reason. I think that is a contributing factor though. When I watch like the two regions.
My maybe copium, but I think part of the issue why we see such early turnover rate in Rocket League is just because it is the same game year in year out for the pros. So I think it's almost impossible to not burn out if you started because a lot of the pros they went pro at 15, 16 too, right? And then they played the game for like 5, 6 years. They get to 2021, it's still this exact same thing. It's not like there's any new mechanic to learn from a new champion being added or like a new COD being made or a new gun being added. It's literally the exact same thing year in year out, and I think it just attributes to like people burning out quicker because there's no change to keep it fresh mentally for the players.
Would you
It's just
say the
literally the
game is
same thing.
actually more boring? Like
And
you see
just
pro players
to
complain about bumps all the time. Like
just to
if
put
you look at
it,
the stats, there's more
yeah.
demos every year per
One
game
one more
per
point though on
player.
this, and you can see it from like a lot of the older players who did retire, and when they like listed reasons on why they did it, Rizzo stated he hated the game outside of pro scrims. And I think that's also part of the issue is when you get older, you start to not like the game outside of just pro scrims and matches, which I think makes players worse if you can't have that same like twos grind set that all the 16, 17, and younger players tend to have. Now, if you can keep your passion for the game, I think you could stay pro into this game into your 30s. It's just, it's hard to keep the passion when the game doesn't change at all. And the only thing you would enjoy is like the competitive scrims and stuff, but you don't enjoy playing twos or threes ranked or free play after like X amount of years.
It's
Yeah.
funny, interesting hearing the interviews, and they're just like, yeah, like playing ROCS was fun. Like ROCS matches are fun. I go queue up ranked, and I just want to bash my head against the wall. It's like that's the vibe I got from them.
Well, I can even understand that playing ranked myself, but
Yeah, ranked stop fun.
not these days. I don't know. I feel like a squishy boomer when I say that. Like I feel like squishy because whenever I play or used to, I haven't played for like 5-6 months, but when I played and I stopped playing, one of the biggest reasons was because I just like the meta was so awful in twos that I just wanted to not play the game at all. In GC because it's just like you constantly get buffed and you have no space. And I understand why that's a meta, but it's just not fun to play.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
speaking of which, to piggyback on that, that's actually the one reason I still played Rocket League across all these years is because playing scrims and competing in tournaments with the school team was very rewarding and actually fun. But the
Yeah.
moment I start queuing up threes, I just realized like I don't enjoy playing this game. And then once I started, like once I graduated and I am no longer on the school team, and I kill a couple of games of ranked, I just do not enjoy the game anymore. There's no reason for me to play it anymore. And that kind of carries back to what Rizzo was saying about pro ROCS games are fun. Ranked is not.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also a big part of that is we see a lot of times when you win worlds or a major, I think worlds especially, you get like a little bit less ambitious and less motivated to keep grinding and playing the game, and that's why you don't see a lot of repeat world winners. I think we're not going to see them even more going in the future because of these like long seasons.
Well, Monkey Moon's going to retire before Worlds
Yeah.
happens,
Hmm.
so
Yeah,
I
exactly.
hope he doesn't. I really hope he doesn't, but it seems like he's going to retire.
No, he's not gonna retire. He's just he got two top eights.
Mentally boomed.
Yeah, and that too, burnout. But I think if you look at CS:GO, right, is they're they have a lot more majors that are like really big. They're a lot more mainstream too. Um, I don't. You know what? The biggest thing actually I think with Rocket League is that it actually is. I feel like a lot more taxing game compared to some esports like CS:GO. In CS:GO, you can be chilling in a corner. Yeah, you're thinking about all these different things at a time. But in Rocket League, you have to control your mechanics a lot. You have to constantly be thinking about where your teammates are, your opponents. And I know like that can be very draining for players, especially with this new league open season format where you're playing constantly and grinding constantly. I feel like that could be really bad for burnout as you're just like
Oh yeah, it
playing
makes
the game
burnout
so
way
much.
worse. Especially RLCSX, I think burned out a lot of older players when it was even crazier. They literally did
Yeah.
not stop playing the game for like a year straight. There was no downtime at all.
Like the game is taxing. I remember I would play sometimes um just like 4 or 5 hours of like ranked ones and I would feel like mentally dead after. As you get older, that gets harder too. So that might be another reason why it's harder to stay pro at that level.
But also, the game itself isn't as big as other esports, right? Like if you go pro in Rocket League, your family and friends might be like, that's cool, I guess. Like you're not gonna be like as
Less
supported.
motivation.
Like you become a pro in like a tier one esport, like League of Legends, like everyone's like, oh my goodness, we're rooting for you. You should definitely do it. And Rocket League, you have your parents saying, no, don't go pro. You need to focus on college.
No,
That's
Yeah,
a
if
I
you
lot of
get
think a lot of parents are supportive once they like get close. It just depends.
yeah
It's changing. I think year by year it's getting better. But
I guess
yeah, I
it's
mean if
getting
you're
a
already
little bit
pro,
more acceptable.
because
Like
most parents of like the current pros are all very accepting and all seem to be
in
very
Rocket League
accepting
too.
even when they weren't pro. Like most of them seem to have taken that mindset if you hear them talk about it.
I don't know if you remember Miho from Selfless, way back, we're talking
Hmm.
season 3 to
Yeah,
5.
Yep.
He only played on weekends.
yeah, it was worse back in the day. I think it's way better now because it is more. Video
Same
games
Might
are
with
be
just
better
in
now too.
general
his
more
teammate
mainstream.
Timmy. Like they just couldn't play. Parents wouldn't
Yeah,
let him.
I mean I don't know if you saw the bowl player Blaze, but he's been facing like those kind of that kind of pressure right now. Like he's not doing well in RLCS, and his parents are like becoming less supportive of it.
Yeah, Blaze is a good example of his parents did not support it at all,
Yeah,
which was tough for him. They like removed his PC a few times or something, or he couldn't
really.
get access to it.
Yeah.
Well, because
And there's also another good one's Joro, and he actually went pro. Joro's parents started to take away his like GPU and stuff.
Joro?
Yeah,
Wait,
on Rogue
which
when he was
player?
with Sizz and it was like Joro, Sizz, and Jacob on Rogue. That was
Man.
a tough one. That was way back. But
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah, this was back when Sizz was pro. You know, I
Yeah,
liked
this
watching
is-
Sizz too, but he retired too.
No, I mean if you're like a league player and you go pro, or like a Valorant player even these days, because like Valorant's a lot more mainstream. I don't
especially
know
in
about
NA.
Overwatch, especially in NA. Yeah, like you get so much clout within like all the gaming community. Whereas if you're like a Rocket League pro, I don't know how many girls start magically liking you or guys, but like
People
it's,
generally, the general reaction to people who go like, if you're pro in Rocket League, is like, "Oh, that's a cool esport," but they don't know anything about it. But they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's cool. I'd love to watch that sometime," but then don't actually watch it. It's like the generalized conception, I'd say, of Rocket League.
hmm I don't know about COD though. Does COD even have
COD's
more
weird.
mainstream?
COD's issue is that
slow.
COD's a tough one because the game COD is so prestigious and makes so much money. Like the esport will never not exist. It's
Right.
just like impossible because they make like COD's like what the #1 best-selling video game like ever, like franchise.
Shouldn't be.
Yeah,
but
that
it
franchise
is.
is
Like-
insane. And they pump out new COD games that are like carbon copies.
They
and people
finally
just buy
switched to a
them.
2-year cycle instead of
Yeah.
releasing a new game every year.
I can't
Yeah,
believe
man.
they had yearly releases.
COD's a weird one to associate an esport with because it seems like the company supports the esport because they make billions. What's them to throw 10 million of the 300 billion they made towards the esport?
Yeah.
But like, if COD wasn't as successful as like a franchise, I don't think the esport would exist. Like if COD had the same revenues like Rocket League made, I don't think it exists at all. But they just got carried by like the game being so prestigious and the global like revenue sales.
I'd agree, especially based off if it was the same management company or same like
Yeah.
organization running it, because Activision makes terrible business choices. Not terrible, but like pretty bad in terms of like quality of the game and whatever they invest in. But yeah, Rocket League, I don't know. I think the biggest reason it's not mainstream is because it's not like a MOBA. It's not an FPS. It doesn't fit into a category. So it's a lot less people who want to try it out, and because like it's still, when it launched, it was like an indie game, right? It wasn't supported
every
by
game
like
was almost. Well, not every game, but I mean, League was an indie game when it launched.
True.
Psyonix
forget
still tries to
those-
say that though. They're like, oh, we're a small indie
Yeah, they
company.
still
It's
try
like,
to claim.
come
they're
on.
an
I mean,
indie,
yeah,
but-
they copium way too much about that. I will agree about that.
It's been
but
7 years, man. Like,
no, I agree. Like I think there's a lot of things Silence could do better with the esport. I think with the game especially, they could do a lot of things better. It's just still like I think there are some things that hold it back from being as successful as. Well, at the same
Yeah.
time though, it's weird because it isn't an FPS, it isn't a MOBA, so there's like no competition too. So I think that's another reason why it is so successful, is because it's just such a
It
unique
both
idea
hurts
that,
it and helps it.
yeah. And we also say that when we talk about like the simplicity of the game in the esport, right? With meta changing, when we go back to that idea of why there's burnout, why there's not so much content you can create about it, is because the beauty of the Rocket League is that it's simple, and that people can easily understand it and get into it, and like understand the esport and watch it. But it's also makes it a little bit less interesting if you've been watching it for a long time, because there's no huge changes that happen in the game itself, like the fundamental game. So.
Yeah, that whole point always confused me because people are like, "Oh, Rocket League, it's gonna be so big because it's the easiest sport to understand. Anyone can pick up on it. Anyone can watch it. It's just a ball going in net." And we've been saying, I've heard that for like years upon years upon years, and then League of Legends brings in more views. CS:GO brings in more views, and it's like, at what point is it like you just have to accept that like, yeah, it's simple to watch, but like obviously other games are as simple to watch or easy to understand, and like more people watch it and understand it. It's just, I don't know. I just think that it's a good take on like Rocket League
I'll
is
give you
simple,
my
but
copium take. Okay. My copium take is that they should definitely change the meta, and that would increase the viewers.
I agree with
Like,
that. I think they should change
because
better, but I
in
think
terms
that's
of like,
it's a topic for another podcast. I don't
I
want
want
to
to
get
see
too much
cool
into that
goals.
right now.
that's where I would almost
I want to see
disagree.
passing points and mechanical like resets, but the meta is bump and demo. That's not fun to watch. It's the same thing every time. In fact, there's more demos now. That's
It
like it's
in a future pod we can get into the meta discussion of whether it should be changed or not, but I think that's we're too deep now to discuss it. It'll take too long. It'll take too long. So
that's
we'll
the
go
take.
into
Yeah,
our
yeah.
last
Sticking with
segment of Insom's reacting to tweets segment. So load them up.
it. Okay. All right, let's go. So first one we have from Monkey Moon yesterday. He says, "Really close call to the end of my career, to be honest." And I believe this was it after he
That was
lost his
It was
match?
after they
yeah,
lost, right?
that's after he lost to KC in the quarterfinals.
Yeah. Wow, really close to the end of his career. Just won Worlds, by the way.
You know what? Yeah, it's you got 2 top 8s. That's I would say a little bit cringe. He's got to chill a little bit. He lost to also the team that just won the regional, so there's probably some copium for there. But I also think maybe like after you win Worlds, like there's a certain high you come off of that it's you almost get into like a little bit of a depression. Like after you finish like a really good series that you've binged, and then you have like withdrawal from like that feeling of like just Worlds. That like having 2 top 8 finishes is like pretty frustrating, but I don't know why you'd say he's retiring or really close call to retiring. That's a little bit of like
Yeah,
a weird tweet.
I think
it's just weird.
it's hard to be a pro at the end of the day, so I understand it, and I mean it's good content when they make tweets like that. I think Rock League has like a weird
Hey.
depression copium, like Monkey Moon's the
Hey,
Justin
it's
of
got
Europe. It seems
6,000
like
likes. Okay, so
I would go
he's
as far
proving
as
the
saying he's adjusted.
impressions, man.
some Rock League players have some like weird mental states where like they like to always threaten of like retiring or like think of it just in general when they get sad. It just seems like
I think it's because they're young too. You know.
Like, oh, GG's is over, and then they come like top
Yeah.
4 the next regional. Oh,
They don't have like a lot of the life experience of dealing with hard situations to like know what's the right thing to think and like how to get over those situations because they've not have to experience them as much. But also, I mean, they're pros, so it's kind
I
of
mean
weird.
B-Mode retired for 4 months.
Yeah, that's true.
Nah, we're not
maybe
gonna
maybe
go into
Monkey Moon should
that.
just retire for 4 months and come back, and it might work for him.
Okay, let's go to the next tweet. So this one is from Vatira. So Esports Awards says the finalists for Esports Controller Rookie of the Year are a bunch of people that are not Rocket League and Vatira and Seiko. And Vatira retweets this saying, "Vote for me, it's not even close. Shh." And Seiko gives a bunch of emoji reacts and then posts a picture of him winning Worlds. And Seiko, oh, I'm sorry. Vatira responds with, oh,
It says something about the major,
French.
right? Oh, you won like the London
French.
major
Oh
or
yeah,
something?
it's something about like Vatira won the major, and then, do you know what that translates to, Blink?
I can
Trop
check
vite
the tweet.
oublié à mon goût, garçon.
I'm not. I
What
don't
does
know how
it
to
mean?
speak French.
I don't know what that means.
I'm saying right. I don't know how to
It's,
speak
it's a
French.
screenshot of the major.
Let me find the tweet.
Well, I can't just say that Seiko won Worlds, and
Yeah.
was it Vatira, or who was
Yeah.
saying?
Basically, Vatira's trying to fight back, and
Vatira did
Seiko
not win
responds
Worlds,
with
I
so
think
a
there's like
crying
Magic and
emoji.
then
Yeah. So
they're
Seiko
Magic and
responds
then
with the crying emoji and a picture of Vatira crying after he lost on Team Boys. And that is career ending, man.
I mean, one won Worlds, one didn't. I think the one that
Yeah.
won Worlds, if Rock League's gonna win Rookie of the Year, it's got to be the one that won Worlds. So
Yeah, I mean, in terms of rookie conversation,
Are
definitely
they, are they
the
even rookies?
boy
They've been
they
here
should go
for a
to
while.
Psycho.
no, yeah, they're rookies.
First, yeah, that was their first
It was their
season.
first RLCS season.
Yeah.
Dang, time flies by quick.
Well,
Yeah,
Seiko
okay,
let me
illegally
see.
played and won, but that doesn't count.
Oh, that's true. All right, the next one is the final tweet we have is by Wikipedia RL. The Carmine Corp viewing party had more viewers than the official Rocket League stream during the grand finals. And there's a screenshot of Rocket League 51K for Carmine
Oh,
First Quadrant, and Kamet 0, 57K viewers watching said grand
6K
finals.
more.
wait.
Yeah.
Now we know where the viewership came from. It came solely from KC. You
Yeah,
remember talking
yeah.
about earlier how
That's
Europe
what I
had more
say.
viewership? It's not from the mainstream. I guess now it's even worse. It's
Oh.
solely from one org. Now we know.
Those KC fan mans, like I don't know. They're crazy.
Could you imagine if Casey didn't make the grand finals?
It would
The
have been
guy's like, well,
51K.
guess I'll end the stream. 51K viewers in the grand finals. Uh, so that's your.
If they ever like hold a LAN in France,
They should.
you're gonna just see like blue everywhere in those stands,
I don't
and
know
like
why
a
they
few
wouldn't.
yellow bees.
They
I think
should hold
I think
Worlds at France.
I've heard that one of the big reasons might be because
I know people don't like holding
the
things in
earnings.
France.
Yeah, because like there's some weird legislation in France or policies that have to do with like the prize earnings from players. Like a certain percentage has to go to the government or something. I can't remember the exact details, but there are some things like actual valid reasons why they are like like holding back on having lands in France.
Yeah, it's too bad. It would pop off if they ever did a France one. That
I'm curious.
we hear Quebec, or not Quebec. We hear French chants, but that'd be fine.
Oh yeah. Have you ever seen like have there been like CS:GO lands in France?
There's been a League of Legends one in France once. I don't know about CS:GO.
Is the
I
crowd
don't
like
think there has
noticeably
been.
French?
I
Is
don't
the crowd
remember.
noticeably French? Like,
It was so big. It was kind of like when I first started watching. I don't remember.
oh, okay.
But anyways, so guys, I have this genius idea. This is how we're gonna save Rocket League viewership. Okay, we're gonna actually pay all the RLCS teams to lose against KC, and then have KC stream the watch party for these matches. And there you go, 120K, 100K viewers for every single EU regional. We're back to what we were in RLCSX.
I guess one last interesting point, though. I don't know if you guys remember, but back in the last couple of years, NRG used to bring that effect of increased viewership, but it's kind of doesn't exist anymore, which is also struck me as a little odd as well. NRG
ever
kind
since
of
they
like
brought on
lost
Sushi, right?
their viewership entourage. It seems like.
Because they didn't make LAN then.
Yeah,
Or
they
major
did
then.
bad at One Worlds, and all the fans were fake. They're all gone. They're all fake fans.
Yeah. I mean, they were always
And
fake
then there's
fans.
me, right? I'm long-term NRG
They never put in
fans for
Musty.
season 2.
It was all Musty fanboys, and once they realized Musty was never going to get in, and it was all a bait on Twitter, they stopped. No more.
Dude, how did Musty get popular? That's my question.
That's a great question.
I watched
That's
those videos and like this
long
guy's
story
like
for another topic.
the average Ohio guy kid.
Musty
To
flick.
be honest,
That's it.
Musty flick.
That's
yeah.
all he did.
I mean, yeah, he got funnier over the years. He gotten better at it, but I don't know how he got super pop. Maybe it's just like the
The kids just
consistency
think
thing,
like
right?
that could be me.
Musty's.
That's my take.
Yeah, he's a weird one, but good
Oh
for
yeah,
him.
you're right.
He did it.
Yeah, well, kudos to him. There you go.
Going back
That's
on
the
the
cringe tweets section.
yeah.
Alright, go
Oh,
ahead.
real quick, going back on the viewership thing, could be the reason why Europe is a little bit better. Not only because of KC, but because they just won Worlds, and NA fans are still depressed that we can't win Worlds for some
Scovia.
reason.
That's
Hey,
okay.
NRG
Wait,
won it.
maybe you would stop watching NA regionals because you think the region is bad, and because you won Worlds. Surely that doesn't apply to everyone else, right? That has to be copium.
No, according
Absolutely.
to other esports where NA doesn't win because NA, if anyone has checked, sucks at esports in every single one.
Yeah.
Apparently, people don't want, like, that's not a factor. If they don't win Worlds, nobody cares. But I think that's kind of copium. Like, go look at any NHL team or NBA team that could barely fill the seats, and then their team goes on one Stanley Cup run or wins NBA, and all of a sudden they're sold out every night the next year. I think if you like win Worlds, it brings a lot more viewership to the region, or a lot more people seem more interested for sure. It's a very, very cope take to think winning doesn't attribute to viewership.
I thought you were saying the opposite for a second.
No.
Like...
And like at the end of the day, if you never win, you'll never know. So that is an issue NA has because in a lot of the things we never win. So we'll never know if it actually attributes to viewership or not because we're never gonna win because we just suck. But
going into the season, I thought that NA looked pretty bad. I mean, I was still depressed after GG
We got
fumbled the bag.
imports now, baby.
think-
We're gonna win.
We have GNG as a number
Yeah.
We
one
got
elite
imports.
team.
How can we lose?
We got European players now, yeah.
We got Europe. We got Europe ice.
What was to say? I was so depressed, and I forget now. Or
Blink
should I
was
forget
threatening
now?
to just not watch it ever again.
Yeah, because
Remember that.
honestly,
If NA loses loses this grand finals, I'm never watching RLCS
Yeah.
again. Like,
And then they got 4-0'd.
yeah. Oh yeah, I was gonna say, if FaZe made that grand final, they were winning it all. BDS
Oh,
doesn't beat
you
FaZe.
think you held it back?
100%. Oh
that's a
yeah.
hot take, but
No, I 100% think if FaZe made finals in recent worlds, they would have beat BDS because they've always been BDS. They're great against EU teams, but they can't beat G2.
Dude, first
So-
killer, most overhyped player ever. What has he won internationally? Nothing.
He's got top 4 like every event.
Has he won?
No, but that's
No.
because he runs into NA teams. He runs into NA teams except for Moist. But Moist isn't here anymore. They lost Fatira, so I think FaZe.
This is the
has a
year
better
of FaZe?
chance.
That's your big.
This is
That's your big prediction? Year of FaZe clan?
this is copium. There's a reason why the name is Fourth Killer.
this is
okay?
NA's
Fourth kill.
year. I don't know. I thought NA, I was gonna say like I was saying NA. I thought NA was gonna have a bad season this year and like probably next year too, because like they just seemed like there was so much more talent in EU. But now we got imports. Now some of like the teams are looking better. We still got beast mode. What else?
We got missed
FaZe,
on a
yeah.
team with capable teammates.
Yeah, we got Miss on team with capable teammates where he almost looks like the worst player on the team, which is like a good sign for that team. I think you looking at Europe, it really just seems like they're just. I think Moist was the only team that really scared me last season. I thought like the ice
Even
that
though
they
BDS
had,
won Worlds.
even though BDS won Worlds, like Moist was the only team
They
that
were
really
the most
scared me.
consistent team for sure from Europe last year.
Like if they beat Fury in that last game 7, I could have seen them beating BDS and then like winning all worlds. I don't think there was a world where G2 won, no matter like what happened. But I
Yeah.
think if FaZe made finals,
Yeah.
and we saw BDS in the finals, they would have won. But if FaZe made finals and there's Moist in the finals, I think FaZe would have lost, because like FaZe couldn't beat Moist.
Yeah.
But now that they split, like seeing the Moist team now, I just don't think like they're as good or as threatening. KC, I still don't think is as good as peak Moist. Even though they just won the regional, they look good. They look like probably the best team in EU, maybe top 3 at worst. With like Oxygen and BDS. But like, I don't know. I'm just not as scared as like of a single team. But maybe that's gonna change at the fall major. Who knows?
We'll find out.
We'll find out,
Anyways,
yeah.
I think that's going to be it for us on the Afterburn podcast too. If you made this far to listening, thanks, and we'll see you next week for the next one.